All right. Thank you everyone for coming. Welcome. Tonight we have Adam Rahn, who's here from Droi Media to give us some tips about using our mobile apps to make videos. And I do want to give you a little bit of information for the library. We are open to the public right now for grab and go services, which means you can also pick up your items curbside, or you can come in and browse the shelves, and you can have up to an hour of computer time. If there are any other changes, we do update that on our website, which is champaign.org. And if you haven't used Zoom before, I'm just going to let you know down at the bottom in the middle, you should have two options. There's a raise hand option where you can raise your hand if you have any technical difficulties, or if you'd like to speak a question out loud, I can unmute you so that you can ask your question yourself. Otherwise, there's a chat bubble, and you can use that to ask questions in chat, and then I will relay them to Adam as we go through. If you want to see something a second time, please feel free to also put that in there so that we can have him demo something a second time. Okay. All right. We did have our first question about whether or not this is a class for chocolate chip cookie baking. You know what? If you want to take video of yourself baking chocolate chip cookies and edit it, I bet we could help you out with how to do that.
Absolutely.
So, all right, we're going to go ahead. Adam, if you want to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And Michael, I will not embarrass myself by talking about baking tonight. My wife is much more of a baker than I am. But if anyone wants to drop chocolate chip cookies off at my house, I will give you my critical review of every chocolate chip cookie you drop off. So I'm always happy to do that. Susan, thank you very much. Thanks for joining me, all of those of you who are out there that I can't see. I'm used to standing in front of a classroom and doing this, and in getting instant feedback as to whether or not people think that I'm engaging, or if I'm talking too quick, or any of those things. So because we're doing it this way, if as I tend to do, I am talking too quick, or I'm covering something too fast, or too briefly, and you want a little bit more explanation, please, as noted, don't hesitate to raise your hand. Stop me dead in my tracks. It's totally fine. I do not hold that against anyone. And part of these courses like this is being able to ask questions and interact with me, the instructor, and your classmates as much as you can. So obviously feel free to ask me whatever you'd like during this presentation, and I will try to answer as best to my ability. Even if I don't have any background in baking chocolate chip cookies, I'll try to I don't know, BS my way through it at the very least. With all of that being said, with my first abbreviated swear word under my belt, 2 minutes in, I'm going to share my screen really quick and give you a little bit of background, a little bit more background about me. We're going to go through a really brief presentation, and then I want to get us into some apps and on our phones that we can use so we can make better films, take better photos, and edit better videos at the end of the day. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Let's see.
And I'm going to go ahead and spotlight your video too. So.
Oh, sure.
And then I'll stop my video.
Great. I can't see a chat. So, Susan, can you see this, the audio and video?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep. And I've got
Wonderful.
chat up so I can monitor for questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, I went like full screen on me. So thank you. So a little bit of background about me. I run my own video production company here in Champaign, based out of Champaign, Urbana. It's called Droi Media. My name is Adam. You can call me Adam. You can call me Droi. I don't really care. That's not a nickname or anything. Sometimes people do that. And I've been doing freelance video production for almost my entire adult life. I started doing it on the side when I was in college, studying video production over at Illinois State University, just down the road. And I kind of kept doing it throughout college, after college, and during my time as a employed video professional. I've worked for major universities and a couple of other larger national corporations that you would know. I'm not going to name drop, but let's just say Google is kind of a fun employer. I've never worked for them. Just kidding. But I've been doing this for a long time, and then I have also been teaching on the side for about 8 years now. I've been developing courses on communication and visual media, video production, photography, and even dabbling in some social media stuff as that's kind of come into uh, its own over the past few years. And I really like sharing the knowledge that I get doing this stuff day in and day out. I mean, this is my full time job, doing video production and learning how to do these things. So I like to share that knowledge, and that's what we're going to get into tonight. Again, please don't hesitate to slow me down or ask questions if you would like. So we're going to go over some basics first, and this is for some of you, this might be stuff that you already know. For those of you who have not encountered any of this information, we want to start with some building blocks because these are going to be really important as we try to build upon these with all the other skills and the other apps that we want. So any of the things that you're able to do with your cell phone are only going to be as good as the skills that you have. No matter what kind of money you want to pay for an app, no matter how expensive your camera is on your phone or how expensive your phone is, that's not going to make you a better video producer. It's not going to, you might be able to take better photos, but it's not going to make you better at any of these things. What's going to make you better is learning some of these basics and building upon them. So we're going to talk about keeping it steady, closer being better, reviewing your footage, utilizing natural light, pardon me there, and considering your composition considerations. So one of the main things that I really, really want to um, instill in everyone here is that cell phones work really, really well. These do incredible things. They're not just regulated to talking to people or texting or whatever. They have really powerful video cameras and probably arguably even more powerful photography cameras built into them these days. And they're really good at being able to quickly record video, quickly record audio, quickly snap photos, but there are some limitations, and one of the biggest ones is that these things are really, really light. If you can still see me at all, I'm holding my cell phone up. They're really light and they can be a little wobbly. So one of the things that we want to do almost without fail is we want to keep our shots as steady as we can. And one of the reasons that we have been using tripods for over 100 plus years in the photography and cinematography worlds is that they keep our cameras as steady as can be. There's three legs. They work really well. There's not going to be any wobble or shake. There can't be because of the physical nature of triangles. If you've ever wondered why there's not a fourth leg on a tripod, just think back to the last time you were at a restaurant and you were on like a wobbly chair or a table and you had to put a sugar packet under it. Being at a restaurant seems so long ago, doesn't it? But remember like 5 years ago when we all used to go to restaurants. But that's why we have three legs. It's great. We want to try and mimic this 3-point system as much as possible with our own bodies or with the world around us. So, um, can you guys see me right? Am I my screen still up there in the corner? Or is that just for me?
Let me check. I think we have.
Okay, never mind. I'll come back to this.
Okay.
Um, I'm doing all sorts of really cool gestures at the camera right now. So but it's okay. My presentation is much more important. So tripods are the steadiest method to keep our camera steady. However, we can utilize our own bodies in this same way. And I don't mean like setting on top of your head and using your hands to hold it down. But what we want to do is give it as many touch points as possible. So if you're holding your phone with one hand, that is going to be a lot less sturdy than if you were to hold it with two hands. And if you're able to get a third touch point on it with a regular camera that we would use for photography, a lot of times this would be the eye cup. We would put our eye up to it, and that's going to be 3 points of contact, and that's going to keep it really, really steady. We want to try and mimic this as much as possible. So as often as you can, try to give it 2 touch points. If you're able to, give it 3. But try as hard as you can to not just give it 1 touch point, because at the end of the day, what that's going to do is introduce a lot of wobble into your footage, and then it's going to impact how your viewer sees the footage. And we're here to make videos for them.
We do have comments that folks can see you and your
Okay.
camera.
Okay, great. Okay,
So you're
wonderful. So
welcome to do your
wonderful, yeah.
demonstrations, and that will be in
So
the video too. The
good.
recording will have your little thumbnail
Okay,
image there
great.
too.
My embarrassing, just blowing past it. So, if we were to hold it with just one hand again, you're going to see this because wobbly. If I go to touch my camera to start it, you're going to see my phone wobbling. If I were to do two hands, I'm using my thumb on the side to start it, and my camera is almost not moving at all when we do it that way. If we were to put our eye up to it, which we can't do because it's just a big screen, um, that's what we would do. So we want to try and give it two touch points as often as possible, and we can get into that, or we will get into that just a little bit more later on. One of the other things that I want to talk about is keeping things really close or as close as possible. Um, because a lot of the things that we're going to watch and produce are on smaller screens, we want to fill those screens with the content that whatever it is. So there are instances that we might want to have a really nice wide shot with something kind of smaller in the background to show maybe the expansive beauty of a park nearby or something like that. However, a lot of times what we want to do is after you maybe use a wide shot, we want to think about getting in closer and showing more close-up stuff. So we don't want 15 wide shots of this expansive park. After we see maybe kind of one wide shot, what I recommend you do is get closer so we can see close-ups of the flowers, or try to get closer and see some birds or whatever you are filming at this point in time. Um, and one of the reasons that we really want to do this is that every screen that you have, so the screen that I'm looking at right now, the screen that you're watching me on, the cell phone screen that you can see here, all of these have a certain number of pixels. So they have, a certain number of pixels that go this way and that go horizontally too. And the further away from the camera, the less pixels are actually creating that image. So if I back off from the camera right now, I'm going to move my mic a little bit closer. If I back off from the camera right now, there are way less pixels making up my head. So it might look a little grainier. It's not going to look as detailed compared to if I were to get a little closer. You're going to be able to see the bags under my eyes. You're going to be able to see this is my quarantine beard. I can't really grow facial hair at all. But you're going to be able to see these details a lot clearer than if I were to be further away. So we want to try and keep things as close as possible, particularly when we're filming with our cell phones. And then one of the other things that I want to talk about on this particular slide is that cell phones work really great in recording audio. So believe it or not, cell phones actually have this ability where you can talk to other people on them. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but so they've got these really, really good microphones built into the bottom of them. And that is going to sound really, really good when you're up close to whoever is talking, to the source of that audio. The further away you go, this volume, with the stuff that's coming out of your mouth, it actually has to fill a volume. So it's not just twice as far away. It's like exponentially further away because there's all this other stuff that it's got to encounter, way more air. There's all these other things it has to bounce off of. So when we're recording audio, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, you want to make sure that your cell phone, kind of that end that has the microphone built in, is as close as possible. So I'm not just talking about visuals in this regard. Another thing that I'd like to talk about, and this is something that I do even to this day. I was on a shoot this morning, and I will do test runs. I will record some test footage. I will make sure that my audio sounds great. I will make sure that my video looks as good as it possibly can, and I'll do that a couple of times, even if I'm counting on some on-screen talent or someone that I'm interviewing. I will have them do an audio check, a mic check, a screen test, and most people are totally fine. We're not going to have them read out 15 paragraphs of lines necessarily, but a lot of times what I'll do is just have someone read off maybe the first sentence or two. This is more important if there are other people involved, but it is still important if you're just out filming a park, or you're filming at a family gathering or something like that. You want to make sure that all of your equipment is working as it's intended before you walk out your door. The last thing you want to do is get to a shoot and realize that, you know, you forgot this little cord and now your microphone doesn't work in your camera. And you just, had you done a 2-minute test to go through the equipment, you would have found out that that cord was somewhere else where you had left it last. Um, and the other thing with this is that for whatever reason, if you've used your camera before, if you've used your audio recorder before, it does not always work the way we want them to for whatever reason. And I can't tell you how many times I have been out on a shoot and my camera that has worked great 1,000 times in a row suddenly doesn't want to focus on a human's face. And you want to make sure that you know that before you actually hit record. You want to do this in a risk-free environment, so you do it during a test run. One of the great things about cell phones is that we can live review our footage. So as we, are doing this, I can actually see myself in this. If we can get this, if I get that angle figured out, I can see myself in the camera while I'm recording it if I'm using it from the screen. This is a really, really nice way now that we have access to be able to see, make sure we're recording. We can see how loud the audio is on occasion. We can see how long the recording has been going on. So if we know that we only have like 4 minutes left on our, of footage time to record onto our phones, we can double check those things. We can also make sure that our heads aren't like cut off in a weird way, or that we don't have that we're not really, really far away from the camera. So you want to do a test run, live review when possible. And then one of the other things that I like to recommend you do is try to review afterwards. So just take a few seconds and play the first 10 or 15 seconds of a clip, or review your photos or listen to your audio. Take 10 or 15 seconds and do that. Just double check and make sure that it recorded. You don't want to get home and realize that the interview that you spent an hour on only recorded a little bit, or it stopped halfway through, or it didn't record at all, or there was some weird buzz in the background that you can't use this audio now. So do test runs, live review when possible, and then also review afterwards. And I know this seems very redundant, but you know, 3 legs on a tripod is kind of redundant too. So 3 different ways of reviewing your footage. Just kind of consider that the tripod of reviewing your footage. One of the other things that we want to do is utilize natural light. I would love to tell everyone that it's going to make your job easier and your videos better if you go out and you buy fancy lights like the ones I've got here, and there's one in the background. Um, it's not. It's not going to make your footage any better than if you were to just use the sun. So one of the big recommendations I have is use a window. The sun is a big free source of light. Use it whenever possible. Um, a lot of times a window is going to create a nice, big, bright, soft, pleasing light on a human face, or whatever it is you're filming. So try to find a lot of natural light, and use that. Cameras work best when there's a lot of light coming through them. There's really powerful cameras in these, but they do need light to work. You can go outside. Just make sure that you are taking into account that harsh direct sunlight or direct sunlight can create harsh shadows, particularly on human faces, and it's a lot less pleasing on a camera than it is to the naked eye. So just be sure you're reviewing that and make sure someone doesn't have weird shadows under their eyes or something like that. And then you want to kind of keep contrast in mind, but this is just kind of the difference between light and dark in your image. Um, the issue here is when there's a really big difference between the brightest and the darkest spot of your image. So in the midday sun, and you have really harsh shadows under a neck or under eyes or under a nose. What we want to do is get a bigger, softer light source. And if you're outside, you can position someone under a shade tree, in the shadow of a building or something like that. And it's going to create a lot more of softer, pleasing light, particularly again on human faces, which is a lot of what we end up filming.
Um,
Some, oh, yes.
Adam, we do have a question
Yeah.
about pixels.
Yes.
If you can speak to that for just a quick second on,
Sure.
is there a standard for pixels for the best, say if you were going to put pictures or video on something like social media or like LinkedIn, or are there any sort of general quality standards?
Yeah, so I'm going to make a note here real quick. So this is if we can see this, is that going to show up at all? I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see that. I think I drew it too thin. So HD or high definition video is pretty standard. It's kind of the standard that we go by now, and it is 1920 pixels across the bottom, and then it's 1080 pixels up and down. So that's all the pixels that it has. Anything bigger than that becomes like Ultra HD or 2K or 4K. These are all just kind of resolution terms that you can use. So 1920 by 1080. Um, and I will, let's see here, I can probably type that. So just 1920 little x 1080 is usually how it's labeled in your phone. As I can't write today, I apologize. But that's pretty common. And then 80. So that's literally just how it looks when it's labeled, if we can see that at all. Here, we'll zoom in.
Maybe not. Oh,
There
there
we
we
go.
go. Almost. I
All
can
right.
put that in the chat too, actually.
Yeah, if only I was a video
1920.
producer. 1920 by 1080. I don't know. That's why. Again, my camera's not focusing today. I should have double checked that it would do it when I zoomed in.
Okay.
That's HD, and that's pretty common. And that is going to be kind of the standard for any social media, any YouTube, anything like that video that you're going to produce. And that is over the past few years, and probably for the next few years, been about as high of resolution as your phone can pump out at any given time on its screen. Your screen is probably not much more resolution than that. So if you have a big, really high res 4K, which is 4 times as high of resolution as HD, your phone might not even be able to play that at full resolution. You also have to take into account internet bandwidth and all this other stuff. So that has been the kind of gold standard that we've gone by for a long time. You can record in much higher resolutions or even lower resolutions if you'd like. It just might be a little bit more pixelated, like an old VHS tape, if it's a lower resolution. And if it's a higher resolution, it is going to take up a lot of space on your phone or on your camera. So just some things to keep in mind. Great
Great.
question, by the way.
Thank you.
So we're going to talk about framing here really quick. The rule of thirds is a really important thing that we, for a very long time, we as humans have not really understood why this is a pleasing way to view a subject. And this is as simple as breaking your screen into drawing essentially lines up and down and then across and creating three columns, sorry, and then 3 rows. And I'll show you an example of this here in just a second. But what we want to do is align your subject matter, or subject matter. Let's see if we can get this. You can see my beautiful face here. You should be able to see a couple of lines, some grid lines on here. I've turned these on my phone. If I were to record, it's not actually going to show these grid lines in the actual recording. These are just here for reference. And what we want to do when we're filming is we want to line things up at those intersections that are up in the upper left and right corners and then the kind of the bottom left and right corners. And for whatever reason, this is just a really pleasing way for people to look at imagery. And if you are looking perhaps even at the library logo, it's below my face in my screen that Susan's image has. You can see that the beginning of the L in library is in that bottom kind of intersection where that screen would be. It's a really nice way to look at that image. And again, for whatever reason, it's one of those things that I recommend to everyone. I even have it, even having done this for 15 plus years, 18 plus years, I guess, at this point. And it's a really good way to help you frame up shots. So you can actually, in most phones, you can get to that by, let's see if we can, pull this down a little bit. All right, you guys able to read my phone screen at all? Maybe. A lot of times these are going to be under, oh, so there's some video sizes you can see showing HD. I think I'm actually in a higher resolution right now because I was using this for a professional project.
So
Um,
you're in your settings first,
just
right?
yep, just in settings. Yeah, just that little gear, and it'll be different for everyone's phone. And then so this mine is labeled as grid lines here, and I've just got those turned on. Those might be it might be rule of thirds, it might be quadrants, but those are not going to show up. Again, they're not going to show up in your actual final image. They're going to show up for you to help you um, produce better videos, and that's um, a really big one that I recommend people do to try and help themselves teach yourselves how to frame things up a little bit better. So nose, room, and headspace, these are exactly like what they sound. If you're filming a person's face, you don't want their head to be cut off like right above their eyes. You also don't want them to be way down low and you can't see their mouth or their chin. And then nose room, that's headspace, just how much space a person's head has. And the nose room is if you're facing one way or the other, you don't want their nose pointing up against the edge of the screen awkwardly. It makes us really uncomfortable as viewers because we can see too far behind the subject and not far enough in front of them. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind. You should know these things innately as you watch footage or watch movies or TV shows. If anything's ever made you uncomfortable, like in a horror movie, the odds are that they are framing something up centered. They're not utilizing those quadrants or those lines, those grid lines to frame something up. They're framing something up in the center, or they're giving someone not enough nose room, or they're cutting off their headspace a little bit. These are really subtle ways to create unease in your shot. So if you're filming a horror film or something, these are really good. But for the most part, we don't want to do that when we're out at the park filming, fun little flower video. Apparently, I just really need to get out and see some flowers since that's my like fourth reference to that. Okay, so you know what? I think that was all of my slides for this part of the presentation. So what I'd like to do is hop into my phone and I'm going to walk you through a handful of settings or apps that I like to use when it comes to actually recording audio, filming video, and taking photos. And you may or may not have had an experience with any number of these apps. If you have any that um, you like that you use yourself, please let me know in the chat. I absolutely love to hear what other apps or programs people are using. Um, I have done as I have an Android phone. I've done as much due diligence as I can to make sure that any app that I'm going to talk about, should have access to on an iOS phone or an Apple phone, in some instances, I've got the alternative just because they're named a little bit differently. But um, we're gonna hop in. So the the really really um, the best photo app for our phones, which is this is pretty basic, but it's just the whatever one is built into it. So I don't use any special app on my phone for photos. You're all going to see my login on my actual camera, or on my phone. Let's get this focused again. I apologize there. So I just use the little app on my phone, the one that's just the actual. Oh, there. Let's zoom in a little bit, and you can see this is just the standard photo app that I've got. You can see that it's got, the button that'll take the actual photo. Some of the things that you might want to try and play around with that I would recommend doing. My phone now has a wide angle, a zoomed in angle. So this is if you wanted to be really far away. We can see the light switch on the far side of my wall if I quit moving my hand around. Or it's got a really, really wide angle. Let me go back to that. It's got a really wide angle, this little icon. So now we're getting this really, really unattractive angle of my face with this wide angle lens. And, this is denoted by one tree, two trees, or three trees based on how wide that is. Some of the other things that we might want to do is that, I mentioned earlier that when we are holding our phones and we go to press record, our phones are going to move a little bit. The exact same thing happens when we're taking photos. So, one of the things that I like to do, without fail, if I'm at a family gathering, because of what I do, and my wife does some photography as well, one of us gets asked to take the family photo every year, which is totally fine. But I don't like sitting out with my arm trying to take a really long selfie because if I take a photo, my thumb is going to bump into that. So, what I actually really like to do is turn on a 2-second timer.
You might
And
need
let me,
to, yep,
let me
refocus
zoom
there.
in. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, everyone. So, I've got just this little bitty clock timer thing here. If you click that, it'll give you a 2-second, 5-second, or 10-second timer. This might also be in your settings. And I'm trying to not move this around as much as possible. And I'm also trying to not keep the reflection of my video light there on it. But what I like to do is turn that on, give myself a 2-second timer even, because what I can do is I can hit the button, let it count down. And ideally, I would then put my hand on it again to hold it down. What this is going to do is it's going to give us a much steadier, sorry about that. It's going to give us a much steadier shot when it comes to just taking a simple photo. And this can be a big game changer. If you've ever looked at your photos and said, you know what, that looks a little blurry, or it's not maybe as steady as I wanted it to be. There's a reason for that. It's just because it literally was not as steady as it should have been. And this is hard to come by. We want to be able to pop out our phones and take a photo really quickly. We don't want to have to think about all these things. But if you are so inclined and you can remember, try turning on a timer the next few times that you take a photo. One of the things that I like to do also is that you can actually get everything framed up the way you want, and then you can, you know, set it down on a rock nearby or a tree stump or on a desk with some books propped up or something, because that's totally fine. It's not going to move. You can press the camera button and then go pop off into your shot. Count to 10. You can even, if you were to set it up this way and hit the thing, it'll actually show the timer like it did in big numbers on the screen. So you'll be able to see what the photo looks like. You can move around and adjust your framing or your composition however you want. Those are probably some of the bigger recommendations I have when it comes to taking photos, just photos on your phone. I would recommend that you don't use your flash at all. What that's going to do is create a really pointed single source, like a little tiny single source of light, and that's going to create really weird shadows on a human face. And it's really honestly not worth it beyond about 6 feet. So if anything else is 6 feet or further away, that flash is not going to matter at all. So try not to use your flash. Try to find maybe a brighter spot, park something in front of a window. Um, but those are some of my bigger recommendations in terms of the timers or in terms of just photography, because we can actually use photos. I use photos all the time in my videos. They're totally fine. If you've ever watched a documentary or seen, any of the, I guess they're documentaries too, but the ones that they do on like ESPN are really good. Is about the only thing I watch on ESPN because I don't follow any sports at all. But they do have those really good documentaries, and um, one photo can take up 3 to 5 to 7 seconds in your video. So it's a really great way to have captured a moment that happened in the past, and maybe you didn't have the time to record video at it. Just take a couple of photos because you can use those in your projects um, later on. Um, okay, and then in terms of editing your photos, there are a couple of apps that I recommend. The main one that I recommend is called Snapseed. I'll type that down here in the chat. It's the word snap and the word seed put together. Now, you can also use Adobe Lightroom for those of us who are familiar with Adobe products. I believe that you can use Lightroom in limited version for free. I use all Adobe products for my business, so I don't know if it's for sure free anymore because I've just logged into my account. But both of those are really, really powerful, really easy to use photo editing tools. Um, so let me pop this in. So for Snapseed, if we can get this focused again. All right. Uh, Pretty simple. You would just click on it, and then it's going to ask you to import a photo. It's going to pull up in all the photos that you've done. You can see I've taken some selfies with my wife and my dog. Um, let's see here. Just pull open one of them sleeping on the snow after we went hiking this weekend. Under tools there, that you have this whole list of tools that you can do stuff with. So you can crop, you can adjust, you can tune the image so you can make it brighter or darker. When you hit the little button down there, all of these other tools will come up. This is one that we could spend an entire class on, so you can desaturate or oversaturate, and you can see the settings are up here. So really, really powerful photo editing app for, oh, pardon me, for photos. And then to get it off of the app, all you just do is go to export, and we export it. It's going to save it. And now this photo is going to be available to me on my phone, and I can, save it to, post it to, Instagram or share it to however. Um, okay, great. I'm seeing that the Lightroom photo editor is free. You just need to set up an Adobe ID. So
Yeah, I just
I
looked it up online to help out for everyone. It does say it's free, and there are in-app purchases,
That's what I thought. So
but free
I
to
thought it
start.
was, yeah, like the, what do they call it? Freemium or whatever.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
so it's a really good one. It's a really powerful. I use that on my desktop for my professional photos a lot. That's one that you probably need to play around with that one a little bit more because it's got a lot of Adobe's, industry standard, really high end photo manipulation tools in it. But those are just a couple of the apps that I would recommend for photos. Now, I want to get into audio stuff really quick because this is another thing that we can use um, in our videos. And I believe, and someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong. Um, are they also video editing software from Helen? Helen, no, Snapseed and Adobe Lightroom are not video editing softwares. They only edit photos, as far as I know. We will talk about some video editing software a little bit, in just a little bit, as long as I don't get too long-winded on something else. Great question, though. So one of the other things that we can use in our videos is audio. So if we are out, and I'm just gonna lean into this example. If we're out filming, a wide shot of a meadow or something like that, and we're trying to get some really good audio of maybe some pretty bird noises or something. We're about to hit the migratory bird season here in Illinois, and you want to get some really good audio, and you are 150 feet away from a bunch of birds, uh, it's probably not going to sound as close up as it could. So, what we want to do is we want to get, again, as close as possible. I know that a bunch of birds are not going to let you come right up to them with a phone, they're probably going to fly away. However, what we can do is get as close as possible and record it from a closer distance because even half that distance away is still going to sound twice as good because we've taken out all of this other ambient noise between us and the subject. So some of the things that we want to do in terms of recording are, and you can buy fancy mics that you can plug in. However, I would recommend you just use the built-in audio recording. So for iOS devices, I believe that those have a really good built-in one. You have to correct me if I'm wrong there. I'm trying to see on my Android phone. Um, I'm not sure about the built-in one. However, the one that I recommend you use, and I'm going to type this down here again, is just called WavePad, and I think that it is. I know it's free. It's got some paid upgrades, but it does all the really really good stuff free. It might actually have the word free in the title. I know mine does. So I'm going to zoom in here again. Get focused. So you can see I've got WavePad free. If you click on that, this is an audio recorder and editor, and I do not want it to record or pick up the last one. So it has some ads. It's not perfect, but it is really powerful and it's pretty basic in the grand scheme of things. And it's as simple as literally hitting the little red record button down here in the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to do that. And you're going to start seeing these waveforms pop up on the screen. And if I'm quiet for a few seconds, which is really rare, you're going to see that line drop down. Now, these are waveforms for our audio, and it's just a visual representation of what's being said. So I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to tell it yes. And then what I'm going to do is look at, I've got this whole audio file here, and we'll see if I can play this back. Waveforms pop up on the screen. And if I'm quiet for a few seconds, which is really rare, yep, you're going to see that line drop down. Now, these are waveforms from audio, and it's just a visual representation of what's being said. So I'm going to stop recording. So you can hear that playback through on my phone just fine. And that actually recorded really well. Granted, I was like 6 inches away from it, but this is a really, really powerful editing tool for audio. And it's really simple to, and maybe I'll zoom back in. You get focused again. Sorry if I was making anyone car sick here. You can actually go in and select sections of your audio track, and you can cut those out if you want. You can go in and, like, let's say you have a little pause right there. You could go in and cut that out. If we want to edit it, we could delete. And then you can export these um, into whatever program you would like to use. So this is a really, really powerful, free, totally free tool. I've never paid for this. I have been using this one since um, 2015, I think. And it's one that I recommended to um, college students for years when I was teaching, when I developed and was teaching a journalism course, because it's really powerful and it's really, really easy. It is the one that if I'm doing an interview with someone as a writer, if I'm writing and I don't even need audio or I don't even need video, I recommend that you record, the interview with this. At least give yourself a visual reference for later on. However, we can take the sound effects or the audio that we've recorded with that app, and we can then put them in our videos later on, whether it's under some photos, whether it's under some video or whatever. We can utilize those things the exact same way that we utilized a photo, that we're utilizing photos. We can do that the same way. So you can buy um, microphones. You can buy some little microphones that will make your life a little bit easier when recording. So remember, we talked about closer being better. Now, if I'm trying to record someone from maybe even like 6 feet away, this is not going to sound as great as it should. It's still got a really good built-in microphone there at the bottom. But think about if you were ever on speakerphone and someone was across the room trying to talk to your parents or your kids, and you're like, oh, Bob says hi, and then you hear someone in the background go, hey, they were probably only like 6 to 10 feet away, and it sounded like they were half a room away. Again, there's a lot of this ambient noise going on between us and that microphone. So we want to get these microphones as close as possible. Sometimes it's not feasible to have a microphone right up in someone's face. So we would use things like there's these little external microphones. These plug right into the audio. They clip onto the person's lapel. They're really, really simple to use. I've got one out of the box right here. And this is essentially this little microphone. It's not going to be able to focus that close onto the camera, but you can see this thing's tiny. It's right up against my face. It's like the size of like a thumbnail. Um, this would clip on if you wanted to invest in something else. This would clip on to something pretty close to the person's face. This other end gets plugged into the little audio jack on your camera. And I hate to tell you, iPhone users who have new iPhones, you're probably going to have to get a dongle or whatever they're making you buy these days. But now my phone can be 7 or 8 feet away, however long this cord is. And I don't have to be right up on someone to record them. I can plug this in, connect this to them, and then be a little bit further away. Now, these are really, really handy if you want to make the investment into some additional equipment. I don't recommend that you do that right off the bat. If you get to a point that you want to, you can also find, and these are called shotgun microphones, and they typically go on a camera, but they're a little more pointed. They're like this. So they're these longer, thinner modules. I've got a little cute one right there. So you can see those. And I've got another one that's like 3 times this length. But keep in mind, I do professional video production. Um, these things are really nice. They're really tiny. They weigh just a couple of ounces, and they plug in to the back of your camera, or they plug into your phone. Sorry, they plug into your phone the exact same way that the other microphone would. So if I were to fumble around for a second and plug that in, I could then hold this closer to someone if I wanted. Camera not focusing is going to drive me a little nuts. I could hold this a little closer to someone, closer to their mouth, while recording further away, and or recording it further away. Just another way to get the actual microphone closer to someone than if you were to actually hold your phone up to it. Again, I recommend that you use whatever free audio recording app you have. If there's others out there, it's great for social distancing recording. Yes, thank you, Kara. That's delightful. I'm a little upset at myself that I didn't make that joke, but we'll just say that my afternoon coffee already drained out of my system. So, or is already out of my system, and my jokes are not as good as they should be at this point in time.
I actually have a quick question about the audio and what is it MP4 that it's recording, or do you know what it's actually
That is
recording in, or?
that is a great question. So, if you are on a iOS device, it might be an MP3.
Okay.
Let me see if I can export something here really quick and see. Let's see. Save as. Save.
So I do think that's
Uh,
MP3 is the standard, but I know with
yeah.
Windows computers, it's all WAV or whatever. And
Yeah, I think WAV or MP4 is probably going to be one of the two. I'm going to see if I can find this audio file I just exported really quick. Let's see. Downloads. There we go.
and then we have
Titles.
another
It is a dot wave.
a
Oop,
dot wave. Okay.
sorry. It's being really
Okay.
loud on my end. And there's another question. Wireless microphones connecting with an iPhone. That is a great question. Helen, thank you for that. So a lot of times you can have a Bluetooth connection with those. Um, I don't know if do the new iPhones have any connections, right? Do they have a plug-in at the bottom for
Yeah,
recording?
it's USB-C if it's
Oh
the
yeah, okay.
newest. If it's the
Yep.
newest iPhones or
Yeah,
iPads.
yeah, yeah. So it's the new little
Hmm.
USB-C. So what you would need to do is find some sort of USB-C to USB or whatever connection for that. However, a lot of microphones now have um, Bluetooth connections, so you can get a little wireless one that would connect directly to your phone. Um, I actually don't. I don't have any of those. I don't use any of them. I do use wireless ones, but they connect to a different transmitter pack that then sits next to and plugs into my camera. But you should be able to. You very honestly could use if you use um, I have had people record podcasts with me using their earbuds, and it's just recording into their connected to their computers actually. But I know that people have used those recording into their phones because those you can monitor your audio and you can record with them if I'm not mistaken. So you should be able to record just fine. Helen, I think that the biggest thing that you'd want to do is just double check that it works ahead of time, and then make sure you have enough battery power because I don't know how long those little headphones last.
Yeah.
I have a little Bluetooth headset that just hangs around my neck and it goes in. I could feasibly use that to record. Your phone does not care what the input is, whether it's coming directly into the phone from an adapter or if it's coming in via Bluetooth. It doesn't care. It just needs to know where it's recording from. So if
And
you plug that in and that audio is recording, it should be totally fine.
would distance would also be a factor, right, for Bluetooth, as
Yeah,
long
and
as you're
then you
within a certain
yeah,
whatever it
whatever
says
the
for.
whatever the rating is for that particular device. Typically, my kind of rule of thumb is like line of sight. If I could throw a baseball at someone, the audio is probably going to be okay. Any further than that, or if you start putting obstacles in between yourselves, between transmitters and receivers, that can cause some unnecessary dropouts or anything like that. But again, I would test those out. When I test out my wireless system, I keep pointing back here because my wireless system's back there. No one else can see it. I will put it on my belt, connect it, and record while I just walk down the street as far as I can go. And if I get a half mile down the road like a lunatic, that's how, that's totally fine. But then I'll walk as far as I think I can, come back, and then see how far that microphone worked before it cut out. Because again, I don't want to do that day of and assume that I can get a certain length or certain distance away from someone. I want to know that going into that scenario. So these are really, really great questions, by the way. I'm always amazed at how many holes I have in my knowledge in these courses um, when I do these things. Great questions. Let's see here. We've got those. Okay. We're going to talk about a couple of more apps here really quick. How are we doing on time, Susan? Does this tell?
You're good. And
Okay,
if we go a little over, if people want to hang out a little bit longer and ask more questions and stuff, that's totally fine.
great.
We pretty much have
Um,
until 8:30.
okay, great. I was going to say, I promise I'll be done by 10. I can't be that long-winded after 8 p.m. So there's a couple of other apps that I want to talk about before we get into any of the filming apps and the editing apps, which are really the really fun ones. Um, in certain circumstances, you might want to record your screen. So if you wanted to, let's say, record how to do something in an app or something on your phone, this has happened to me before. If you have someone that wants to make a demo or you're just trying to screen record and show someone how to do something, you might want to do that. And that could be, um, let's say that you're crossing a state line on a road trip. A cutesy bit of footage would be recording your screen as the little cheese head pops up as you drive into Wisconsin or whatever. So this app called DU Recorder. Let's see here. And that's going to be on Android again. I apologize, iOS people. I don't hate you, I swear. I have Macs everywhere else. All my other stuff is Macs. It's just my phone is an Android. But it's the recorder. And let's see here. We can get this focused here. It's just this little app, DU recorder. If you click on it, what it's going to ask is, do you want to display it over other apps, which is totally fine. What that's going to do is just going to provide a little work bar up here. And you can just go ahead and see, start now. You start re-recording. It's going to give you a countdown. And now my screen is being recorded. So everything that I do is being recorded on the screen right now. And there's a little itty bitty filming icon up here, a little bitty camera icon. So if I wanted to talk to someone about how to analyze their, you know, analytics on social media, and tell them what to look for, I could do that. And I wouldn't actually have to be there in person. I could do this all um, outside of that. And then when you want to stop it, I should not have zoomed out at that point. I apologize, everyone. When you want to stop it, all you have to do is find the app at the very top. Oop, find the app up here at the top, and you can start recording again. You can stop recording. You can edit the video. You can X out. We're going to go into, sorry, I apologize. We're going to go into recorder. No, it's going to make me record again. Sorry, I'm trying to do this from the side. I can't look at the screen very well. The recording is finished. So we're going to go back over to the DU recorder and find our screenshot. Let's see here. We just took this one. So I want to do this from the side. I can't. Oh, yeah, it's really embarrassing. That's a really embarrassing one. You can hear the audio is recording too, so it's recording audio in. And I'm not touching my screen here. So you'll see this will be the audio, or the audio, I guess, will be there. You can hear it a little bit, but yeah, you can see that exactly what I did is coming up. If you wanted to do anything like this is a really simple, really powerful way to record your screen to show other people. And I tend to use this a bit for when I have clients that maybe have developed apps or something like that. Or if you like to doodle or you wanted to edit your videos or photos, and you want to show people the process in which you do it, um, feel free to do that. So I actually have an iPad somewhere around here. I like to doodle on it a lot. Um, sometimes I'll record the screen on that and then play it back. So it's kind of a time lapse of the kind of my doodle or my drawing or whatever taking shape. Um, and oh, it looks like the DU recorder is also available on the
Yeah,
iOS App
I
Store.
just looked it up. So it is available for iOS. Again,
Mm.
in-app purchases, but free at the beginning. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's the same on Android. So it's one of the things that it'll try to entice you and say, "Hey, why don't you buy me?" Or are you tired of the ads that I put up in front of it? I've never really noticed a lot of ads popping up and annoying me, but it is one of those things that if you were to use it, it's a fun app. It's kind of unusual, but it's one that I wanted to share with everyone because again, I do use it um, from time to time. Now, one of the other things, and this is probably one of the more fun apps or fun types of things that I do, is I like to film time lapses a lot. And these are, for those of you unfamiliar with the term time lapse, these are just filming something that happens in a longer period of time than what we're really capable or willing to sit down and record start to finish. And we record just little bitty snippets throughout that time frame, and then we push it all together and speed it up and it plays through. So you've surely seen these where there's like clouds whipping through the sky or a storm rolling in or something like that. I love doing this, and it's actually really easy to do with your phone. For years when I had a camera like the one I'm using now, I would have to get this little remote control and I'd have to go through and set up all the settings. I'd have to test it out for like 15 minutes and make sure that it was working and make sure that my intervals and all of this other stuff were recording right, and then start again. Well, you can do this from your phone in like literally a matter of seconds. And these are really fun. If you perhaps, again, want to take a time lapse of a road trip or some driving. So there's two apps. So let me type this in here, Lapse It Pro, and let's see, frame lapse. Now, some of um, my older phone had a built-in time lapse app, but you can search other time lapse apps. This is Lapse It Pro. If you click on this, it's going to say Lapse It. It's going to say this. These are all, again, the freemium version. So you don't want to pay for them. Please don't do that. You use the free ones. They're totally fine. I use them. I use the free ones for my high-end professional work. Um, Super easy. If you've recorded some stuff, there's a gallery. Let's see if this is actually recording or can I get in there? But you can want to go new capture if you want to record this. And then over here are all your settings. So when you're ready to record, you just hit record. If you hit the little timer, we say, hey, we want to take a picture every 15 seconds, we'll say. And you might have to do a little bit of math. You don't want your camera taking a photo every 1 second for 16 hours. It's going to take up a lot of space. We can hit set. Here are our resolutions. We talked about resolutions earlier. So I think that I'm regulated to 720, not 1080. 1080 is our way to, maybe it'll let me do that. Oh, it did. 1080 is our HD format, if you remember from earlier. If you want to do settings, so if you want to say focus on near, focus on far, um, if you wanted to switch the camera around and record from this side, you could do that.
very meta.
Yeah, if I want to record the time lapse of this, so I hit record, and I'm getting a little frame count here in the bottom, so it's giving me the countdown. So it's 1F. It's filmed 1 frame of video so far, and when we get to 15, you're going to see this click up to 2. That's 2 frames of video. So 2 frames of video is not a lot. I'm going to stop this before it gets too much further into it. Um, so there are 30 frames a second in most of the videos that we watch. If you're watching a film or a movie, those typically have 24 frames a second. So you're going to want to, I hate to say this, break out a calculator and do some math, figure out how many frames you want for maybe like a 10-second clip, 10-second time lapse or something. It's 300. I did the math for you. So you're going to want 300 frames at least for those. So you're going to have to wait until that clicks up to 300 frames or more. And then once you're done, you export it, and then it's going to export a really fast time lapse of whatever you've done. I use this all the time when I'm at like a coffee shop or something at a busy intersections nearby. I'll just aim my camera at that and set it up on the table. These are something that you want to have really, really steady because again, any sort of movement is going to kind of detract from that. So that was Lapse It Pro. Frame Lapse is the exact same thing. It's going to have settings on one side. You're going to be able to hit record, export it, and then you could use those. You can upload them directly to social media. You can upload them to YouTube. You can use them um, in your projects. I use those in projects all the time. If you've ever watched like HGTV or anything like that, they use time lapses constantly to showcase the outside builds of a project or transition from day to night or things like that. Really fun. I recommend that even if you're not interested, even if you're not really interested in video production in general or like as a a long-term hobby, download those and play around with them. You're going to find yourself using those apps all the time just to record fun little time lapses. They're just really neat, really neat to do, and I like doing those a lot. And pretty popular with a lot of people. One more real quick before we get into the good stuff is called, let's see, Sun. And this is just kind of a ancillary. It's kind of like a tertiary ancillary one. And it's called Sun Position Demo. And I think it's because it's just the demo version of it. I'm not gonna pay for any of this stuff. You guys are finding out that I'm a real cheapskate tonight. So it's called Sun Position Demo. When you click on it, it's going to give you some really neat information. So it's going to give you golden hour. It's going to tell you when the sunset is, when the moonset is, when the moonrise is. And for those of you who aren't familiar, golden hour is the time of day when the sun is just coming up in the morning or it's just getting ready to go down in the evening. And everything has this really nice, bright, but soft kind of golden hue to it. We call it golden hour in this profession, in the photography and the video professions. And there are really, really pleasing shadows and lights on everything, humans and plants and houses and everything. So this is the time of day when we want to film or shoot photos. So it's going to tell us, this app is going to tell us when those are for a specific day. So if we want to know, it's going to it's going to say, hey, you're in Champaign. If you want to know when golden hour ends in the morning, it ends at 7:13. So you're gonna have to get up and be filming by 6:36 in the morning and be done by about 7:13 if you want to take advantage of a morning golden hour. And tomorrow's evening one, it's going to be at 5, and it's going to be about 5:37 is when that ends. We're totally just focused on my light switch in the background there. One of the other things that I think is really neat here is, it'll give you the moon phases and stuff, is if you click on the little settings up here in the upper left, it's going to give you the sun and moon path. So you can see some weird stuff going on my screen here. This is the moon path right now. So if I were going to frame up my camera to record the moon going down below the horizon, I could use this app. You can see as I turn it around my room, you can see it's showing where the moon is going to be at a certain time. And I'm not going to be able to turn it far enough. Oh, there we go. There's the sun. So clearly I'm inside and it's kind of not going to help. But if I'm outside, I can actually use this app to help me determine where the sun's going to be for a time lapse or the moon. I do this when, we get those things like the blood moons or a lunar eclipse or something. And I want to know when it's going to come out from behind like a tree or something like that. And those are times when I would use this to see, okay, I need to have my camera recording at this certain time to capture the moon in that regards. Um, um, Oven Tim. Michael, 350 typically, but I'll have to double check there. And I think that there are a lot of really good cookbooks at the library. I might have like 6 or 7 of them in my bedroom right now because I like to cook. So that's just that sun position demo is just another fun one to kind of play around with, and I like to tie that one in with the time lapse one because that's the most helpful. You can use that to kind of determine maybe where you want to shoot in the middle of a day. So if you go out somewhere and you know you maybe want to do a photo shoot or something, you can use that and see where the sun's going to be up and around buildings, um, and see where your shadows might be. Now, we're going to get into a couple of the recording ones and the video recording ones. So the best recording one that I have used is just the built-in one that my camera has. It always has been. Cameras right now have really, really good video settings. Pardon me. So, like with the phone one, all I have to do is go over to video. Oh, if I click on it, going to bring up some additional settings. I can record. I can record from the opposite end, so you guys can all see yourself, or you can see my little setup there. You can go into your settings and change your video size. So you can change it from, um, you know, Ultra HD to full HD or whatever you'd like. You can change it to different frames per second. So typically, as you remember me mentioning a few minutes ago, we like to film at 30 frames a second. I just told this to film at 60 frames a second. So this is actually recording now. It would be recording faster than we would watch something. So what we can do with that footage is we can tell it to slow down by about 50%. So if you record in a higher frame rate, at a higher amount than 30 frames a second, you can slow it down and get really cool slow motion video. And then you can also, if you want to go to advanced recording options, a lot of times those will be on, and those are just to save space. You can see shooting. Let's see, I don't remember. A lot of these do have. Oh, here we go. That's where it is. So if you go into, let's see if we go back to video and we click the little. Nope. Sorry, where did I get to that at? Uh, More. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I apologize. If we go to, for on my Android phone, it's more. You can actually have options for slow motion video. You can go, there's a pro camera setting that's going to give us some other stuff. There's a night setting, super slow mo. A lot of these are really, really powerful. So we can go in and adjust our shutter speed. So we can, make it way darker, way brighter by opening up our shutter for longer than we normally would otherwise. ISO is just how sensitive your sensor is to light. So the higher the number, 3200, it's going to be a lot more sensitive to light than 64 or 2. And I have this on my main camera. I'm adjusting this ISO right now. I'm making it really, really sensitive to light. And I'm making it really unsensitive to light in that regard. You can adjust, you can tell it you've got manual focus. So if we wanted to focus on certain things, these are really, really powerful tools, and they're built right into almost all of our cameras. They're really, really nice to use. If you do want an app to use, the two that I recommend, sorry, I'm adjusting my settings on my camera there. The two that I recommend for Androids, I'm gonna type these in here, are, let's see, Cinema FB5 iOS is, no, these ones are not free. These are the only ones that I'm going to say that if you do want to buy these, or if you do want these, you will have to buy them. I would really stress again that you just use what you have available to you for free on your phone at this point in time until you get to a point that you're like, hey, I really want to pursue this as a hobby or even a side hustle or whatever. But those are really, really powerful. I do have that Cinema F5V on my Android here. And it gives you a lot of options. I mean, you can see that there's a lot of different settings on here compared to my other, the other basic one that we have just built into Android phones. It's going to give you a lot of professional level settings to be able to adjust um, all of these settings and create better, more kind of cinematic videos. They are a lot more. We could spend 3 or 4 hours going over each of those apps individually. But those are the two that I would recommend if you're interested in learning more. You could also find um, tutorials of those on YouTube. You can pester the library to have me back into each one of those. But again, those are some that I don't recommend you just purchasing anything right out of the gate. Make sure that you are going to want to do this a little bit more. So there are three more apps that I want to cover in the last couple of minutes that we've got here, and they're for the actual editing of our videos. Now, one of the big issues that I have with producing anything on my cell phone is that I have yet to find a really good free video editor that doesn't put a watermark on my video. Now, the ones that I'm going to talk about tonight all have these. They're going to create a little watermark where in the bottom left or right of the corner of the screen, it's going to say, Viva Video or KineMaster or um, Filmora Go, any of these. And while they do produce really good videos and they're really easy to edit in, they are going to put a little watermark on your videos, which is a no-no for me if I've got clients. If I'm just making a fun video, with one of my weekends or something like that, totally fine. But I'm gonna type those out real quick here. And I believe that these are available on iOS and Android. Let's see. And these all have ads, so they're the ones that are going to pester you to try to buy the upgraded version. Again, I would not recommend you do that, um, especially with these having to. You'd have to spend like 20 or 30 bucks in some cases just to buy the upgraded version. The free versions are really, really fun to play with. And then Viva Video. And we actually have done a course on Viva Video here at the library. But these are really, really simple to use. I'm going to find uh, one of them here really quickly. Let's see, here we go. So we've got Viva Video here. Maybe, there we go. So we've got Viva Video right there. I'm going to click on that. It will open. And it's going to have a bunch of like crazy stuff. It constantly wants you to buy the like fun TikTok ad versions. But we're going to go up to edit. It's going to show me all the stuff that I've filmed before. So let's say I want to bring in this little video. We can go to next. It's going to import it. It's going to play through. We could trim it if we want really quickly. These are, in a matter of seconds, we're able to, if I didn't have full size human fingers, I'd probably be able to edit a lot quicker. You're able to add text. So you can add text on the screen. You can save it, you can export it. Again, some of these are for pros, for the pro ones. It's going to show you ads before you're able to do any of this stuff, unfortunately. And it's going to put a little watermark on the bottom of the screen there. But in a matter of seconds, you can bring in these photos and videos that you've edited and start putting them together. And again, these as if any of you were in the Viva Video one, and as Susan has noted, the recording of that tutorial is available on the library's YouTube channel. I'd recommend you checking that out. I don't have time to get into these fully as much as I would like, but they're all really similar. If you watch that Viva Video tutorial, you're going to essentially know how to work Filmora Go and that KineMaster one. And I've played around with those a little bit. Viva Video is one that I've used for several years on and off. It's the best free one that I've encountered. It's really intuitive. It's really easy to use. It's got a lot of really good features. So I'd recommend you checking that out. With all of that being said, I don't have anything else. I don't have any other apps to talk about. I am very happy to answer any questions. I don't know if I have a lot more answers about cookie baking. I think I've gotten to the end of my knowledge there, Michael. Sorry. But what kind of questions do you guys have?
So it looks like we have a question
Oh
about
yeah.
if you can advise how to record videos remotely in good quality if we need to take a video for a person in a different city.
Great. Helen, I have a follow-up question so I can give you a better answer on this one. Do you want to record a video of yourself on your phone and send it to someone? Or are we trying to record a video of someone else in a different city? Now, those are gonna those will impact my answers a little bit. I'm gonna use this question time to take a quick sip of water. Oh no, Michael, your cookie's burnt. That's a bummer. Okay, Helen, so you want to record someone else from a different city. My biggest recommendation on this would probably be to do it over Zoom. So you can record someone on Zoom very easily, just like Susan's doing now, and do it that way. It's not going to involve your phone at all, really. You can, I believe, record. It might be FaceTime, one of the video apps I believe you can record on your phone. But what you could do if you don't have a computer or you don't want to worry about recording over Zoom, you could set up a FaceTime and then you could use that screen recorder that we went through earlier, the DU recorder. You could start recording your screen, call the person on video chat, or have them record, have them do whatever they need to into the camera and then stop the recording and you'd have the footage of them from a different city feasibly. I hope that answers your question. But those are some ways that I would do it. I would try to do it over Zoom first because it's just so easy. If I didn't have access to a computer, I would then do it by recording my screen and having and FaceTiming or Skyping or something with them over my phone. I hope that answered your question, Helen. Any other questions? Anything else? Any other apps or anything? Do you guys have any apps that you use that you like that you've ever used in your phone?
I was
Again, I
just
like
gonna, sorry, I was just gonna mention that with the iOS, on our iPad here at the library that we use, I just use the screen recorder that's built in to the iPad to record instructional videos that I do for how to use different apps and how to do different things on the iPad for our tech workshops. And I find that that works pretty well. But since you introduced me to Viva Video, I've been using that a lot for some of the other stuff too.
Yeah, I think that the iOSs have a really good built-in screen recorder, if I remember correctly. Um, so if you have an iOS device, you probably just could use that one without downloading and saving another one. Okay, Helen's got another question here, another follow-up question. The best way to share footage if the person is elsewhere to upload their videos. Helen, that's a great question. One of the things that I recommend you don't do is try not to text it to someone. I had a client who records some stuff on their cell phone and they sent it to me and then I edit it for them. And when they text it, a lot of times it goes through a really big compression process. So it's going to sound or it's going to look and sound a lot more pixelated, a lot worse quality than it needs to be. So a lot of times I would recommend if you've recorded it or they've recorded it on their phone, have them just open up their email app, attach it in an email, or use something like Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that that you would have access to on your phone. Microsoft has a cloud sharing service. And then if I need to get a video to someone that way, I can upload it, share it with them, and then they can download it on their computer somewhere else, anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Or you could also always do it over YouTube if you were recording videos and they didn't need to have the actual file, you just wanted them to watch it, you could just upload it to YouTube and keep it private, and then so they could see it. Great question.
Yeah. I know we do that here at work where we use our OneDrive because it's a lot easier than trying to send a large video file over email or over,
Yeah.
especially if you're trying to do it over a Wi-Fi network, it can be a little bit slower. And
Yeah, absolutely. So I use OneDrive on occasion. I use Google Drive pretty regularly. I'm going to try to see if I can find my one of my accounts.
and put in a plug for if you aren't familiar with using cloud services, cloud storage. The library, we do offer a class in cloud storage and how to get started with cloud storage too.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I use it all the time. I mean, I've got videos here that I've sent to clients. I've got samples, I've got all of these videos that I've sent to clients over. There's just one Google Drive. folder that I've got. So that's usually the easiest way if you're trying to share videos with someone else that way. Great questions, Helen. I hope that answered all of them. If you have more, please let me know. Any other questions from anyone?
Adam, are you willing to share the presentation from the beginning tonight?
I am indeed.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
I can. I have already X out of it, but I will share it with you.
Yeah, if you share it with me, I can email it. I can email it out to folks
I will email it
if
out
that
to
works.
you
Okay.
in the next like 10 minutes,
Okay.
actually. But absolutely, I'm willing to do that.
Great.
And I know I blew through a lot of that information because I wanted to get to
Mhm.
actually opening some of the apps and showing you that and showing you as quickly as I could that they're very easy to use and one of the best ways to kind of learn is to go in and start using them.
Mhm.
Again, in a risk-free environment around your house or while you're on a hike or while you're baking cookies or something like that. Pay attention to your cookies and make sure you don't burn them, please.
Mhm.
But use them in scenarios like that. Take some photos, record some video, and do that. So yeah, I will send that over and you can make that available with the video.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes. Any other questions for Adam? Would anyone like me to unmute them so they can ask their question out loud? Oh, we do have another question. Okay.
Oh, great.
Um,
Um,
yes. So yeah, I think all of them did. All of the video editing apps do include watermarks in the free version.
mhm.
But if you want to pay for the premium versions or the pro versions, then I'm assuming you don't have watermarks then.
Yeah, I think is it yeah, so Filmora Go even puts a little like 2-second animation at the end of your videos of its thing. Um, Adobe Premiere has a Premiere Rush, which is available for phones. Um, I have access to that, but I have an Adobe Cloud subscription, so I didn't want to cover that because $30 a month is for all of my software, not
Mhm.
just one little film app on my phone. There's just a lot for someone to pay as a hobby. So
Yeah.
that's another option, and it's really good, and it's not going to watermark anything.
Mhm. And we do actually have here at the library, we do have our Creation Station computers. And while we are open, there's an hour, you can get an hour of computer time. So if you were interested in doing editing on the computer instead of on your phone, we do have Adobe Premiere on 4 of our computers upstairs. Well, 2 right now because of social distancing. So we have 2 computers that have Adobe Premiere on them.
Yeah, I mean, that's my preferred video
Yeah.
editing program. But it's
Yeah.
again, that's a I've spent 10 years learning,
Yes.
being self-taught on it, so it's pretty hefty.
Yeah, and Adam
Um,
has taught courses for us on Adobe Premiere before, and we hope to have him back once we can do in-person programming again to teach it for us on our training laptops that we have here in the library.
yeah, it's a fun one. If anyone's interested, it's a really good program, and um, I don't really care what program you use if you want to use Final Cut or something, but it's a really easy program to use once you get into it, and it integrates really well with Photoshop
Mhm.
and Lightroom and Illustrator and other things like that.
Yeah, so watch our calendar for those in the future. Hopefully, it may not be till after the summer, but
Yeah,
hopefully at some point we can have those in person again.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of hard to do on this one because otherwise you're just watching me unless you have a really
Yeah, yeah,
nice computer, also.
yeah. And we wanted to make sure we had stuff that you could try right away. So
Yeah,
figured phones is a good way to do that.
yeah. This is the easiest way.
Yeah.
Cool. And I do want to let you guys know if you do have follow-up questions, um, please let me know. You can, Susan, is it okay if I type my email in this
Yeah,
thing? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. My very friendly email address, hi@droimedia.com. Feel free to just pester me if you ever have any questions. I'm always happy to answer. Um, if for some reason I'm out on a shoot or I have a couple of things going on, it might take me like 24 hours or so to get back to you, but I will get back to you. I try to set aside a little bit of time each week to get back to emails for questions and stuff like that. So I'm always happy to do that and uh, get people up to speed as best I can, so you can enjoy creating as much as I do.
All right, I think I'll go ahead and go back to gallery view for us here.
Yeah.
So we can have both of us up on screen. And say thank you very much for presenting for us tonight. Uh, does anyone have any final questions or would like to be unmuted so they can ask their question out loud? All right. If not, we'll go ahead and say thank you so much for coming tonight, Adam. We will definitely have you come back and do some more fun video editing and composition and all things video
Yeah, that's fine.
to help with stuff. Yeah, excellent.
12-hour comprehensive course.
Yes,
I could
absolutely.
I can come up with 12 hours of talking at the drop
If
of
the
a hat,
content's
clearly.
there, we're happy to have
Sure.
it.
Thank you for having me, really, and I appreciate everyone that showed up and listened. Even if you didn't really listen the whole time, it's tough. I get it. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to show an interest in this. It's always exciting to see that a class was full
Yeah.
from an instructor point of view.
Yes, and we will post a video up on the library's YouTube channel as well, and I'll send that link out to everyone who attended. So, all right.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Michael, enjoy your burnt cookies.